Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I got a little like a little stiff mentally and physically from the long weekend and Thanksgiving. So I am trying to get myself going this morning. How about you?
I'm doing good. I used it as a work weekend, like fun and family, but some work. And so my mind's in overgear because I spent 4 hours cleaning up a project and it got done. And I just feel like, oh, good. Now I can do the next project.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't
It
that an
is.
amazing feeling when you get things done like that? So,
Yeah.
all right. So, hopefully, everyone who's watching live or on replay, say hi to us. And I hope everyone had a really nice Thanksgiving if you live here in the United States. But let's talk hashtags today.
Yeah. So I did some deep dive in research history. First of all, do you know when hashtags first came to use? Do you know what year?
I do not.
2007.
Really? For
Yep.
what?
Because a web marketing specialist went into Twitter's office and suggested, because Twitter has so few characters, to start putting a pound symbol to group related tweets together. And so that is
Interesting.
how hashtags became about. So I just thought that was kind of a fun piece of trivia.
That is a fun piece of
So
trivia. I am surprised. Okay.
the question I often get is people even ask, like, what is a hashtag? So basically, a hashtag is a word or phrase that's preceded by the pound symbol. Simple. That's what a hashtag is, even though it's amazing. You're thinking, like, people really don't know what hashtags are. Yep. Especially because there's so much talk about hashtags. I think it intimidates people. And so they blow it up to be a bigger thing than what it really is. So it's just a pound symbol with a word or a group of words. It's a way for us to connect to a specific topic, an event, a theme, or conversation. And
Okay. So
so,
I always describe it as the hashtag, like you said, is just that number symbol with a word. But I know I use it as when I'm looking for something,
right.
I'm
Yep.
going to hashtag business coach or hashtag interior designer, Long Island, right? Like something like that, where I'm looking for a specific something. I use it almost as a Google.
Correct. So that is one of the uses. I've seen it used. Another one is if people have weddings, they'll hashtag their wedding. And that way all the images that someone's taken, they can have a collaboration of all those
Ah,
posts, or an event. It's a great way to showcase, like we had holiday parade here on Friday nights, hashtagging Sioux Falls Holiday Parade. It's a great way to see all the other people and maybe find new people that are following in a local area. Or another good way too is a cause. So if you believe in a specific cause, hashtagging that cause that you believe in will help you get exposed to other people are going to find you, and then it'll be able to subtly show kind of like your values. And so there's multiple reasons why people use hashtags. We'll cover a few basics on when you're doing a hashtag. You can use the hashtag and the word. You can't use hashtag and a space or punctuation or any symbols. And that's where some people will do like hyphenated blue hyphen white. You can't use that for a hashtag. You have to use blue, white together with no space.
okay. But now let's just back up a minute though. Hashtags are used on Instagram. They're used on Twitter.
Right.
Where else is it smart to use a hashtag, and where
So
is it a waste to use a hashtag?
actually, on all the platforms, you can use hashtags. The key is to how many and what the purpose is. So Twitter, 1 to 2 hashtags. Facebook, you can use 1 to 2 hashtags, but I would use them for specific posts. So if you're doing a special promo, you're doing a special event, or like when you are highlighting one of your sponsors, maybe something like that, but not all the time because people kind of think it's a little bit more spammy on
Gotcha.
Facebook, but people will use hashtags on Facebook. YouTube, you could use 2 to 3 hashtags on YouTube if you wanted. LinkedIn, I hear mixed things, 1 to 2 or 2 to 4, but you want to make sure that you're using it for professional hashtags, not something silly. So you want it to be more focused on professionalism. And then Pinterest, it's really important to use at least 2 to 5 hashtags when you're creating new pins.
Okay. And Instagram now, the latest is.
So Instagram is interesting. The Instagram curator, which has its own type of feed, is saying use 3 to 5 hashtags per post and put it right in your copy on your copy section. Instagram proper, the whole Instagram, is saying between 8 to 15. So the thing is we used to do 30 and that we were pretty consistent, but right now less is actually more. What's happening when we're using all 30, and I'm going to have a caveat here, is that sometimes it'll mess with that algorithm a little bit and it just kind of makes the algorithm go goofy. And so having 8 to 15 concise targeted hashtags makes better sense. And we'll talk about that just a second. Now, however, if you're using 30 hashtags and it's working, use them. So
see, this is the thing. We're really just reading different studies that are coming out and trying to interpret them, because the beauty of social media is they don't really tell us.
Correct. Well, and the thing is that at one time hashtags would really help. If you started a new Instagram account, using the right hashtags would really help. Now hashtags are something to do, but they don't have as much weight and prominence on them as having good content that you're sharing.
Okay.
Or having that consistency. So to me, hashtags are kind of like the sprinkles on a cupcake. Like they make that cupcake look prettier. They make them sometimes taste better. Maybe we did better do frosting, because you have to have frosting on a cupcake. You don't always have to have sprinkles. So, but so you need them, but we tend to say, well, my Instagram isn't doing very well because I don't know hashtags. I don't have we put too much pressure on the hashtag. So having a few key things, knowing how many hashtags to use. People say, do we put them in the copy, in the main copy, or do we put them on the first comment? We do both for our clients. The ones that I usually will do the first comment is when they've got too many characters in the copy and we can't put any hashtags in. So then we do the first comment. Again, it's a testing to see what works better. If you have a really long post, maybe putting the hashtags in the first comment might work. They're searchable for both. It's still going to show up for both.
Yeah, and I just think, again, I think people get hung up on sometimes on these details where it's just get the hashtags on your post somewhere and then start tracking to see what you think is working. But even you may think that's what did it, and it might not have even been that. So it is always a testing, adjusting constantly.
Correct. And one thing, when you do, say you're testing out new hashtags, first, it's important to test and try, especially if you're using the Instagram. But if you're looking in your insights, you can go ahead under insights, you can see how many impressions you have, and then part of it will say, does it come from your feed, does it come from your home, I don't know, and then it'll say from hashtags. So then you can see if the hashtags are what's driving. And if you try a new set of hashtags and it's working, then you'll know. It's just kind of a good way to check if you're spending a lot of time and energy on hashtags. When researching hashtags on what you should use, you want to use, like I put in interior designer hashtag to this morning just as a test, and I forget. Let me just quickly do it here again. That's not a really good hashtag to use because it is so diluted.
Yeah, there used to be reports, and there probably still are, like you should be using hashtags that have between this many people and that many people researching them. And then again, this is always this moving target, Kim. Like, how does anyone keep up on all this information? I mean, I have you to keep up on the information.
You test, you listen, you do some research, and just try to get on the, find some key people that are up to date on the changes, and then be ready to pivot when needed. So like interior design has 135 million posts with that hashtag. So if you post using that hashtag, it's diluted. People aren't gonna see it. So the recommendation is between 20,000 and 500,000 posts that are related to your niche, related to the post, or related to something somebody's going to search for you.
Okay. Say that number again. Between how many?
20,000 and 500,000 is the latest
Okay, so if
recommendation.
you're looking up a hashtag to see whether you want to use it, if
Right.
it shows that it's searched between 20,000 and 500,000 times, and we're talking about Instagram at the moment, then it's possibly a decent hashtag for you to try to use because people are
Right.
searching for that hashtag and you may stay up in the feed for a decent amount of time for people to find you. But if it's over 500,000, you're going to get buried really fast because
Right.
so many people are using it.
So when I did interior design, that's 135 million. Interior designs is 1.3 million. So when I went down to interior design lovers, 543,000.
Ooh.
So that was a new one. Interior design inspiration is 1 million. I mean, you could try it and see. It's not quite as diluted.
Okay, just do me a favor. Do interior designer Long Island. I'm just so curious what that number would be. I could do it myself if I pick up my phone.
But that's okay. I've got it right here. So
Okay.
so yes. Oh, I
Did you spell it right?
no, I put an F in there. My fingers didn't.
Because I remember years ago, I did my first live presentation to Long Island interior designers, and I said, not one of you is using hashtag interior designer Long Island. There wasn't literally even one person using it. That was 5 years ago I did that seminar.
Now it's 364 posts, but for that. So let's go a little bit broader and we'll do long interior designer New York. And even that one is 818.
Where do you see the number? Because I just did into hashtag interior designer Long Island in the search bar on Instagram, and it came up with 100 plus posts. I feel like I'm looking in the wrong place.
Okay, so I gotta go back. I just put in search. Interior.
I did interior designer, so that could be the difference.
Yes. Well, interior designer, and then I'm going to do New York.
Okay, I did the same, and it says 500 plus posts. But where do I actually see the number?
I hit the hashtag button.
You hit the hashtag button. I don't know where that is.
So I'm wondering, and I don't know if maybe our layout is different because do you have an iPhone or do you have another?
I have an iPhone.
Okay, and I have the iPhone too. So
it could just be what I'm touching. So I'm in the.
So if I have your feed, and then I click on the little magnifying glass on the bottom.
Oh, okay. I did it in a different spot. Okay.
And then it's search button, and then I put in the interior.
I see it. It says 818 posts, interior designer, New York.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So I was looking. So with all the designers in New York, I'm in New York, which is why we're doing it for anyone who's watching from another state, but you can take wherever you are and put in interior designer, Florida. You can put business coach, Long Island, whatever you are, who, when you're listening to this, put that into the search bar on Instagram and find out how many posts are being used with that hashtag. And you're saying if it's between 20,000 and 500,000, that's a post, a hashtag you definitely
want to incorporate. Yes.
Want to incorporate. But what about the ones that are so low? Like, to me, that I still would like that. Interior designer, New York.
Because that's what are people going to search?
I mean, if I was looking for a service, I would be searching for the interior designer and the name of my town or the name of my region or the name of my state. So I would be using all. Same with if I'm looking to hire a business coach that's local or a social media marketer that's local, I would do the same thing.
Correct. Yep. So go ahead and use the town. So having them, down more specific. One, it's brand awareness. People are going to know where you're at. Mm-hmm. One of the pet peeves I have is when I do an audit and action for you, and I will go to their website and I'll go to all their social sites, and I won't know where they're at. Like, I'm not able to find their location. So I don't know if they'll work with me because I don't know where they live. So yes, doing that with the hashtags with location. And then hashtagging, like if you, like we do hashtag business coach Nancy, that probably isn't going to, I'll look and see what.
Well, that would only be me probably.
Right. But it is a brand recognition. So you want to
Right,
think,
because if people are looking for me, they can't always find me. They don't remember my last name. They'll just go business coach Nancy.
right. And you've had 554 posts
See
with
that?
that
Okay.
hashtag.
Okay.
So, it's okay to use some of the smaller ones, especially like I always do Fresh Impact with Kim. Well, nobody else is using that probably. So it's a way to stand out a little bit more. But then if you're using more of the general, so like social media marketing would have a lot of hashtags. So how can I make that more specific? Do I say social media marketer for designers, or and seeing where those numbers are when I'm coming up with my hashtag strategy?
Okay. I like this. We haven't talked hashtags in a really long time.
Yeah, we haven't.
Because people I think they get numb to it. They just copy and paste from their notes in their phone, the hashtags that they put in ages ago when they listened to one podcast and they listed them all out, but they don't necessarily take once a quarter and just do a little research and see if you want
Right.
to change them up.
And that's what I would recommend, is maybe once a quarter, changing up the hashtags, or making sure that if there's something new with the post that is going on. So like a local company that we work with was in the Parade of Lights. So they could use their standard hashtags that they use for local businesses, and then they could add hashtag Parade of Lights Sioux Falls, hashtag Parade of Lights 2021. And so they could use their standards, but then add a little bit more related to the image that is being shared.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Anything else? Did we miss?
I don't think so.
So, all right. So if you are watching on live and you just tuned in, go back to the beginning, because it's really smart to understand the hashtags you're using. And I always say, one last tip, look at the other people in your space and see how much activity they get on their, let's say, Instagram. And if they're getting a lot of activity, look at the hashtags they're using and see if there's a hashtag that you could incorporate into your posts as well, in order to kind of start grabbing more attention from other places.
Correct.
It's the name of the game.
It is. And one example is that some hashtags get banned from Instagram. So an example, I believe it was hashtag body confidence. That one is banned because of the way people basically they misused the hashtag.
Oh.
But when you go in and you do a little bit deeper, find someone that used that hashtag, and then see what other hashtags they use to help spur some ideas on what. So some example is love your body image. Different things, so ways that they're phrasing it, that might be some hashtags to get some ideas. So
okay, all right, we do have one question. Let me just see if I can get some of it up here. So Virginia, it's so nice to see you on again. I hope you're feeling better. I met her in High Point, and then on the way home they had a car accident.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I'm so glad to see you here, Virginia. So, okay, so question. So are you saying not to use the hashtags that are over that number you recommended? Any chance we'd be found in the higher numbers? Good question.
It's a good question. I would test it. So do I still use interior designer for my designers that I work with? Yes. We'll still use them. They're recognizable. It's just diluted a little bit more. Then it's not going to be as easy to be found. So if you're using hashtags and you want a strategy to help you grow and get into new markets, being more specific, like you always say, it's the riches and the niches. It's still the same kind of thing with the hashtag. So you can definitely, if you are struggling, if you only have 8 and you want to do 10 hashtags, put in the higher numbers. Before, the strategy we used to use was like 30, 40 percentage. So we'd have like 30% of the hashtags were in like the million and above, and 30% were in the moderate, and then we had the niche ones that had less than 50,000 type things. So
yeah, I like that balance. And again, it is a hit or miss whether you're going to nail it the first time, second time. And then it's, what does nailing it even mean, right? You're just looking to be found by your ideal client. So the way I always say it is, if you put yourself in the shoes of your ideal client, what would they be researching in order to find you? That's
Right.
the most important hashtags for you to include. And then you can include other ones that maybe have a higher number in order to grow your Instagram audience, but it may not necessarily be specific to your ideal clients, right? So
Correct.
if you're just looking to grow, you can throw in all kinds of hashtags. But if you're really looking to attract your ideal client, might take a couple extra minutes to get really specific about your area and what your
Right.
ideal client would put in order to find you.
Right. And so if you're a designer that specializes in home remodeling, using hashtag home, I haven't checked to see the numbers, but depending on hashtag, hashtag home remodel New York or different things. But yeah, so if you had 15 hashtags that you're going to try to acquire, then doing, 4 or 5 with the higher number, 4 or 5 with the moderate number, and 4 or 5 with the real brand specific niching.
Right. I think it also matters if you do e-design or virtual design, right? So if you want to put interior designer, hashtag interior designer, you're going to fall down quickly in the feed because so many people are using that. But you never know. Somebody might see you at that exact moment, and that might end up being a client. So Virginia's asking, what about Instagood My Photo or any similar to that? I don't know anything about that. Do you, Kim?
Well, Instagood My Photo has 7.4 million posts.
Oh, forget it. You're never going to be found in that.
Right. Chances are you aren't. And so, I mean, if I wouldn't, just because everybody else is doing it. And
Right. So in other words, how can you test this? Tell me if I'm right with this, Kim. If I used Instagood My Photo and posted right now, 1 minute later, I go and look up and search the hashtag Instagood My Photo, I'm probably already way down in the feed because so many people used it after me that I just fell far down.
Right. And so what you want to do is you want to, when you hit on that hashtag and it'll come up, there's a top and then there's recently used.
Yes.
And what you want to do is try to get in the hashtags that show up in the top. You want to show up in those top hashtags. And the recently used, they're going to go through that really fast. If you have 7.4 million people using that photo or using that hashtag, it's going to cycle through really quickly. It's
Right.
going to be like when you think of Twitter versus Instagram, a tweet's half-life is like a minute. Like you tweet and it's gone. Where on Instagram, it's quite a few more minutes. And so you want to think about that. It's not like you can't use it, but you think about what the goal and the purpose of. If you are really curating your feed on Instagram and you're using hashtags to market your business, then I would make sure that I use the best hashtags to do that.
Right.
If you took a picture of Millie and it's just for fun, then using the Instagood My Photo would be fun. No.
Right. Or Dogs of Instagram. You look up that one. I don't know how many. There was so many. Millie has her own Instagram that I haven't used in a while, but everyone loves LUVS. Millie is what I normally hashtag it. So it gets picked up on hers as well. But yeah, I think you're right. It depends on how much time you want to put into it. But if you do once a quarter, do a review of the hashtags and whether they are still your more general ones, the ones you use every time, whether they are still applicable. It's a really smart thing to do because the world is changing so fast. This online world, it's hard to keep up.
It is. It's extremely hard. And, one thing too, if you find that your Instagram, that you're posting good quality content, but it just is kind of stale, well, then I would test some new hashtags and see if that can help.
Okay. If that doesn't kickstart it again. Okay, great. Oh, this was a lot of information today. Thank you, Kim.
You bet. I told you I had lots of notes because I didn't want to forget anything because we can get off on tangents really easy.
We do tend to do that, but whatever. All right. Well, everyone go have a happy Monday. Go check your hashtags. The new year is starting. Woo! Very soon. So you want to have at least some of that stuff all figured out. All right. Virginia's sneaking in one last question here. She said, so do you recommend a certain amount of hashtags like they use to say, we did cover that in the beginning, Virginia. You might not have been on yet, but what was the number, Kim, they're saying these days?
So anywhere between 8 and 15 is a good number. So some are saying the Instagram curator themselves are saying 3 to 5, but Instagram itself says 8 to 15. So
I'm convinced that people just say whatever they want and then say they're the expert because no one really knows.
right. I know Instagram itself has come out and sent different 8 to 15, and then the creator. So Instagram creator is just a different thing than Instagram business, and that feed itself, they're up to date and said 3 to 5. So again, test to see what works.
Test to see what works. Okay, sounds good. All right, everyone, go have a great Monday. Be productive, and I will see you here tomorrow. Thanks, Kim.
And have a great week.
Okay, you too. Bye.